internal meeting. We won't have a speaker next week. We'll have just internal discussion and demo. But today we don't want to take a whole lot of time doing announcements or anything because we got great speaker. Bettina, are you going to introduce?
Actually, MZ is going to introduce him.
MZ, she did a great job acquiring this speaker for us. So we really appreciate all the work MZ and Bettina have been doing in getting our speaker. So MZ, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Manish. We had quite a bit of communication back and forth. Excuse me for nagging too much if I had. But it takes some time, you know. We have Dr. Manish Parashar today joining us. He is the Director and Chair in Computational Science and Engineering at the University of Utah and jointly inaugural Chief AI Officer. That's very fancy and interesting title. Also, Dr. Parashar is involved with UofU Responsible AI Initiative, which is, I believe, what we'll be hearing about today. And that has to do with usage of AI so that we protect privacy, civil rights, liberties, you know, promote fairness, accountability, transparency, while engaging with this amazing technology that's attacking us on a daily basis. I'm not going to, I have the screen for Dr. Parashar's presentation flyer. I'm not going to read every line. I'll just hand it over to Dr. Parashar. Please, the floor is yours. We are listening.
Oh, thank you, MC, and thanks everybody for this opportunity. I'm going to try to share my slides, and most of times it works. Let's see. Can you see that?
Perfectly. Yes. And are you okay if we make it interactive? If people have questions, they can ask throughout the presentation?
That was the next thing I was going to say. Please stop me. I have slides. I don't have to go through all of them. Please interrupt me at any time. And because I cannot see the chat and hands, so please just speak up. And I will pause. I have... as was mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Responsible AI initiative that I lead at the university. But I want to talk a little more broadly and see how, how can we build more of an innovation ecosystem that can really harness AI in a responsible way to support discovery, innovation, and impact across the state. So I'll talk about a few different things that we have been doing in this space. Again, please do interrupt me at any time. Just as a background, I wanted to have one slide talking about the Scientific Computing and Imaging Institute, which has been at the U for over 30 years now. What it does is it focuses on translational research and innovation at the intersection of large-scale computing, computer science, visualization, graphic, data analytics, applied mathematics, and science broadly, right? So they work on doing research, building tools, building software, and collaborating to have impact in broad range of science disciplines. It's a very successful institute that I joined a few years back, and I have been leading more recently. But it was a natural place from which to launch the Responsible AI initiative that I'm going to talk about. So just to give you some background, and this is probably redundant for this audience, but right, AI is become this transformative technology that's impacting all aspects of what we do as academics at the university, but more broadly, science and society. Right? It's driving innovation, scientific discovery, economic growth, and it impacts. Right? There's almost nothing we can do today involving computers that does not involve AI, from word processors to research to experimentation. It all brings in AI in some way or the other. And on the slide, you see a cartoon that Copilot generated for me, and you see some now dated reports that have tried to emphasize and articles that have tried to emphasize that point. And just to underline that, and I know now it's 25, but the 24 Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry were given uh, to recognize this impact, physics for the fundamental computer science aspects underlying neural networks. And even though it wasn't a physics discovery, because it was transformative for the field, they recognize it, and that's my interpretation. And then more directly in chemistry for AlphaFold and the impact of AI on protein folding. And as was mentioned, right, we also have to recognize that, like any tool, technology, it can have negative social, economic, and environmental consequences, and we have to be cognizant of them. And as we build this technology, we need to make sure we build it and use it in a way that is responsible, that addresses some of these potential negative consequences. And to dig a little deeper into that, right, there is one definition of what responsible AI is, and that is through NIST, and it talks about AI. It talks about responsible AI in terms of attributes such as validity, safety, security, accountability, privacy enhancement, fairness, and explainability. And there are other definitions as well, but that's the context, right? How do we use it in a way that protects these aspects? I'd like to point out that AI is different as a technology, and that is because of its ability to learn and adapt, right? And so, in that sense, AI evolves, the models evolve, but they evolve depend on who is using it. Where is the data coming from? What are the communities that are part of that usage, right? And so it's important that that happens in a way that is responsible, and that means increasing the range of opportunity, range of data, the diversity of perspectives that go into that as we evolve AI. And the third point I want to make is that, like any computing technology, and especially for AI, data and cyber infrastructure, including computing, is very, very critical. And so, if you want to expand the AI use and development, we need to make sure access to infrastructure is very big part of it. So, if I think about an AI innovation ecosystem, I think it's built out of on really three fundamental pieces, right? First is technical, right? So how do we have the R&D, the infrastructure to support the R&D, the algorithms, the models, the data sets, right? And the computing software tools, do we have all of those and making sure those are accessible? Then there is the uh, policy and regulation, right? So how do we make sure we have the right regulatory frameworks that can do make sure that there is protection while also making sure we are able to innovate? And there are different models. There's no one model at this point. People are exploring, different states are looking at it differently. There is no centralized federal model in the US at this point. Utah has an interesting model, and I can talk a lot more about it. But other states are also exploring models at this point. California announced some recent uh, 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 the governor signed legislation in AI that tries to create a framework. EU and other countries have different frameworks, and so it's an interesting landscape as we try to figure it out and navigate this. Right, but there's definitely a role for policy and regulation there. But I think the most important part of this is training, community, building community awareness, workforce development issues, upskilling issues. And I think that's probably the most important for two reasons. One is to make sure that the technology is evolving and being used as broadly as possible. But I think second thing is also understanding that it's impacting so many people at all levels that without an awareness, you can you become susceptible to many of the negative impacts, such as misinformation, such as hallucinations, such as bias, right? Because people are using it without understanding the nature of this technology, you tend to take what you get out of these models at face value, and that can cause problem. The ability to really limit conversation, create echo chambers, the psychophancy that's built into these things, into these models, right? So those are all very, very important things to make people aware of. So within this framing, we've been trying to see what an innovation ecosystem for AI, responsible AI, may look like at the U. And so that sort of led to the creation of the Responsible AI Initiative. Started about a little, well, almost 2 years at this point ago, when President Randall made I would say, a bold announcement that we're going to invest a large amount of resources to understand AI, leverage AI in a translational way to address some of the most challenging, important issues for the state and the region, right? So can we use AI in a translational way to address important problems and in a responsible way, such as environmental resilience, such as air quality, water sustainability, health and wellness, mental health, workforce development, teaching and learning, addressing digital divides, right? So how can we use AI responsibly to address these issues, create multidisciplinary teams that can come together to do this, and through that process, advance AI itself, right? And this sort of builds on the what I like to call the University of Utah playbook, right, which has happened in the past, whether it is in being the fourth node of ARPANET, which became the internet, right, in transforming the graphics and imaging and visualization uh, field for worldwide, right? So how and all of these came started by using the current technology to address important problems, and through that process transform the technology itself, right? So that's really what this initiative is trying to do. It's based on a few foundational ideas. One is the ethical development of technology, understanding that AI is evolving both as a technology but as well as the applications of this technology. And so how do we make sure that as we do that, we not only address the technical aspects, but also the socio-technical, the ethical, the societal aspects of that, right? So how do we make sure that we're building the right teams that can address both these dimensions of this technology? And that naturally requires interdisciplinary collaborations that address the technical and the societal challenges. Workforce development and training is a big part of what we're doing. So how do we train the next generation to leverage, to be able to most effectively think using this additional tool that AI provides and technology, right? But also making sure they're equipped to address many of the ethical challenges that come up when you're using AI. Understanding that moving forward, almost every profession is going to involve AI in some form. And so we're making sure that our students are able to navigate that AI enabled world. As I mentioned, to be responsible, you have to make sure the community is involved. So how you make sure that we are involving the community, engaging the community, but also making them aware of the technology and the nature of the technology, right? And some of the implications of this technology, some of the negative implications, that things that they have to be aware of, right? And then also working with the state and legislatures and lawmakers in advocating for policies around responsible AI. From an implementation perspective, we are executing this initiative based on four key activities. The first one is around attracting the best research expertise here at the U. And that means uh, bringing together people who are already at the U into teams to work together to address these challenges, but also creating opportunities to bring people in from outside to engage with us. And that includes, for the former, the Faculty Fellows Program, for the latter, Visitors Programs, Postdoctoral Fellows Program, and cluster hires. And I'll talk a little more about these as we move forward. The second piece is recognizing that AI depends on infrastructure. How do you provide the state of the art infrastructure for the researchers here, right? So, how do you create the computing, the GPUs, the storage, the data sets, the communication infrastructure, the software tools, and the expertise so that we can really make the researchers as competitive as possible in an AI enabled research world. Um, as I said, community engagement is important. So, how do you create structures and activities that can bring the broader community together across the state and bringing industry and government and academia together to talk about AI, the opportunities of AI, the concerns around AI, sharing practices, right? So, how do we build the community around that? And then finally, given that it's important to create structures that can support interdisciplinary work, how do you make that most effective here? How do you have the right support structures so that these individuals, the researchers, are as productive and as impactful as possible? Um, I just want to flash this that it implementing this and getting uh, to where we are today in 2 years takes a village, and a lot of people have come together to really make this initiative as effective as possible, right? And I'm just going to talk about the teams involved. We have a core team. We have an executive committee that meets regularly to figure out what the strategy is. How do we make sure we are most effectively meeting the goals of this initiative aligned with its mission and its values? We have an external advisory committee that's uh, that brings experts from government, from national, federal government, from agencies, from national labs, academia, and provides us with guidance and awareness, but also becoming ambassadors for this program nationally. We have working groups that have been working aggressively to interpret these broad areas into specific focuses and activities that we can do, right? When we talk about, say, environmental resilience, it's a broad area. So, how do you figure out where specifically we focus in initially? And so on. And that's based on where we have strengths, where are the opportunities, where are the resources, where can we differentiate ourselves. So they have been working very diligently to be able to help us implement and make this initiative operational. And then we have a faculty engagement committee that's bringing the voices from across um, the campus and be able to talk as we roll out the different programs and give us feedback and also make sure that the community is aware of it, right? Again, you can go to the webpage at rai.utah.edu and find names and details here. I know this slide doesn't include names, but you can find all this information at rai.utah.edu. As I said, that we've been moving over the past year and a half or so on this initiative, and in these three thrust areas, here is where we are initially focusing on. For example, in environmental resilience, we're talking about sustainable AI and AI for environmental resilience. And we have been uh, launching activities. We've been launching cluster hires in this space. Health and wellness, the focus is rather initially on operationalizing a lot of the data sets we have that can enable AI-enabled healthcare and wellness. And then in teaching learning, we have focused on optimizing education, AI-powered assistance, and integration of ethical and responsible AI into our teaching practices. Again, you can go online and find a lot of more information about the process we used to get to these areas, and then what are we doing in these areas. So here is one slide that talks about opportunities that are out there, and there's a QR code that can take you to these. In case you're interested, we have a faculty fellows program that uh, funds researchers already at the U for 3 years to engage in multidisciplinary teams and be part of the initiative. We've already made 7 awards. We just closed uh, last week on the next deadline, and there'll be, we'll have periodic deadlines here, right? And so we're trying to grow this community, and it's truly researchers from across all of the university. We have a distinguished visitors program. We have had 4 or I think 5 visitors so far, and we again closed on the next deadline, uh, right? And then there'll be additional deadlines moving forward, and the same thing with postdoctoral fellows, right? We just closed on a deadline. We still not made decisions, but we've already funded 5 postdoctoral fellows so far. Okay. And here's a list of people who have been uh, who are engaging as part of the initiative and have been awarded both. We have the faculty fellows, 7 of faculty fellows, and we have the postdoctoral uh, fellows as well, right? So we have now brought in a team together that works collectively on leveraging AI to address these important challenges and working together. And you can see little icons telling them which areas they span. You can also see that they are really truly across the campus. And we are growing this with the next set of awards we're going to announce in the next few weeks. This is going to almost double in size. And here are our initial visitors. I thought there were 5, actually, there are 4. Just to tell you a little bit of the type of things our faculty fellows are doing and postdocs. Um, Here's one slide. I have a few slides here that I'll highlight. This one is from uh, Chenglu Li, and he's from the education psychology, and he's using AI to teach math to high school, middle school students, right? And I think this is interesting in using it, but I think he's got a very unique approach to do this, right? Rather than building AI educators or tutors, he's using AI as a learner. He's building on the fact that you know students learn concepts better when they are teaching them. So can I build an AI student that can be trained on math concepts, and using that being able to help the students learn, right? And that has been very impactful. He's been running large studies, and they have really demonstrated the effectiveness of this approach, right? It gets rid of challenges such as disengagement or rote memorization, because now you have to teach the AI, right, how certain concepts that you have been taught, and you're by going through that process, right, you're able to better understand the concepts yourself, and we've all experienced that. Isabel Frilling from communications. She's been trying to understand, uh, how do we understand concepts, news that's being um, disseminated in an AI based world, right? Where we often have using AI-based tools to deliver this information. We create echo chambers, right? Not everybody is getting the same facts or same information, right? And so how do you then reconcile that? And how are you able to have communications when that is the reality? And she's been using that specifically when there's important information, for example, in the context of a pandemic or a medical situation or any sort of important situation, is you're getting the information, but it's always within this perspective that you have in an AI governed media, and then how do you then communicate that and have conversations around that? Pablo, who's a postdoctoral fellow, he's been looking at how do you build models and pre-train them to help uh, address, uh, to help as facilitators to detect, for example, depression, right? And so, how do you create models that can first, using multimodal information, be able to detect and flag those things, given how much time you spend in these kind of apps? Um, Blake Vernon, another postdoc, has been working on how do I promote water use efficiency by detecting soil moisture, being more precise on how I water things based on what the soil moisture is, and builds AI models using a whole spectrum of information to be able to do that. And there are others I won't go through all of them, but I just wanted to, and you can find a lot of these online as well, right? A lot of the interesting works that people are working on. So the final piece of this is the cluster hires, and we just launched the first one. It was posted last week, and this is trying to hire new faculty in the area of AI for environmental resilience. There are two postings. One is for AI for environmental modeling and forecasting, and the other one is AI for environmental monitoring. These are out right now, and it's really impressive. There are 8 colleges and many units within each college that are participating in this cluster hire. The second one is around rethinking education for the AI revolution. Again, there are two postings. Um, One is on workforce development and AI literacy, and the other one is on AI and emerging technologies in teaching and learning. These should be out any day now. I was hoping today, but it should be soon. And again, 8 colleges involved in this one as well. And the third one is something we're still working on, but we probably will have that posted sometime in early spring of 2026. Um, a new program we just launched is on seed grants, right? So now that we have all these people working together, they have great ideas. They need resources to move those ideas forward. And so the seed grant program that we just launched is going to provide those resources. Again, this is still open. I think deadline, it's not here, but I think it's towards the end of this year, but it should be online. And then finally, we're investing a lot on infrastructure. Uh, we've been multiplying the number of GPUs and other compute resources and storage we have, and we are investing significantly, but also investing in people who can help users use these resources. And I'll talk about one more investment later in the slide deck. But given that I'm sort of at the halfway point of this allocated slot, I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions for me. Right? I'm going to talk a little more about data and community engagement after this.
Yeah, Dr. Parashar, I just wondered, this infrastructure investment, is it for creating models or is it more for inference?
It can be used for both. Now, we don't have enough infrastructure for example, to train a foundational model, right? This is just a fraction of what would be needed. But for smaller model training, you could use it. For fine-tuning models, you could, right? So it is fairly limited compared to what some of the bigger hyperscalers have to train foundational models. They're several orders of magnitude larger than this. But this, from a capability perspective, you could, in principle, do that if you can scale down the model to fit on this size of a cluster.
Do you have a plan for what you're going to use it for, though? I mean, why are you investing 15 million? Is there a specific plan?
So this is based on what we see as the need among our community, right? So this is uh, spread over 3 installments, and that the reason for that is because technology evolves so quickly, and you want to make sure that our researchers have state of the art. So we want to make sure that we can provide the capacity we believe our researchers need to be able to do the research they're doing. And that's how we've come up, right? So CHPC has been doing it for over 3 decades. They have a good understanding of what the researchers here need. And so that's why we're making these investments.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the presentation so far? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. Just about last month, we had another guest speaker, Dr. Zach Boyd from the Office of AI Intelligence with Utah Commerce. You mentioned multiple times that you work with the government on policies and things. What is your interaction with that office?
So Zach is a colleague, a friend, and a partner in crime here. Very much. We work very closely together. Margaret Bussey, who is the head of the Department of Commerce, is on our advisory committee. Zach has been part of every meeting and he's an integral part of our community consortium that I have not talked about. It's later on here. So the quick answer is that we engage on a bunch. We've been engaging on how to set up the regulatory sandboxes that his office uh, manages, right, around regulatory mitigation sandboxes. And so we work very, very closely with his office.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one question about so community involvement. This is really impressive, and I can see a lot of cool things happening from this. And as a practitioner of AI with a small business, is there a place for me to get involved here, or is it more at the academic level that you want involvement?
I think definitely, right? We think industry partnerships, especially in AI as a technology, right? This is so close between what industry is doing and what academia. I think building a win-win partnership is so critical here. And so we're trying to facilitate that. Let me go through the rest of the slides and I'll come and point out where we can partner with industry.
Perfect, thanks.
So I'm going to go through the rest of the slides very quickly. I think data remains a challenge, right? Because without, everybody's heard about garbage in, garbage out. Without good data, you really don't have a good model. And so we are working hard at a national level to build a data platform that can really provide access to data, manage data, and make it easier to find and use data, right? I won't go into a lot of details out here, but just point you to this. It's we are part of the leadership out here, but this is a broader effort than just the university or the state. It's a national effort, and it really tries to focus on discovering data sets, right? How do you find and catalog data sets? How do you provide environments where we can support data utilization? How do we integrate that data with compute platforms? Usually, it's non-trivial to connect this data sources to where your computing is. So how do you make that more seamless? How do you then build your workflows on top of it? And then how do you support data-driven or data science learning and AI learning? Right. So we have been working on this for about a year and a half now to really build out the tools and infrastructure to need to do this. And one big focus out here is on making sure that we can try to build trust around data. And that's important, right? Because I think if you want to trust AI, we have to at first order trust the data that was used to build the AI model. And trust involves multiple dimensions. It involves provenance, right? Where is the data coming from? Who collected it? How was it collected? How was it cataloged? Right? A lot of that stuff is important. governance is important. How are you managing the data, making sure it's not corrupted, making sure it is updated accordingly. But I think the biggest part of it is to understand trust in the context of what I want to use it for. And that comes from understanding how it has been used, who has been using it, what is the impact of that data set on applications or research that used it. And that helps me build trust on whether it's fit for my purpose. And we are trying to build tools that can quantify this. Again, I can talk a lot more. We have some demos here, but I just want to flag it that this is important and we have been spending a lot of time thinking about it. On community engagement, we sort of made it a fundamental activity, and we've been doing a lot of broad outreach in AI. I'll point to one. We partnered with the Leonardo. Unfortunately, it's closed or it's closing now. But about a year and a half or 2 years back, we started an immersive exhibit called Into the Mind of AI. And we worked with them to see, so that we can build awareness on AI as a technology as well as a application of AI, so, and start conversations there so that people get more comfortable with this technology and understand, what its limitations are, right? And understand how best to use it as a tool to augment whatever they do. And we had a lot of activities as part of that partnership with the Leonardo. And there are other activities we have been doing and continue to do in this space. For example, we had this hackathon for students where we said, okay, how do we work on using AI to address issues around air quality, right? And this was extremely successful. Again, we brought people from around the state to start thinking about this. We created a consortium, and that's where industry can come in. But we said right from day one that this has to be bigger than the U. If we want to be successful here, we need to bring community across the state. So we created a consortium, and it sort of evolved organically, right? We said, here are the principles, here are the mechanisms, right? Let's make this a community activity. And we have one concept called special interest groups where community members can come together and convene around different issues, share best practices, share infrastructure, discover the issue. And so we have created a bunch of special interest groups, and these are completely community run. We just facilitate it, right? And involved industry, involved academia, involved government, right? For example, Bradley Young down there is leading the AI policy. He's from the Office of AI policy that Zach runs, right? So we have Kevin William, who's doing workforce, who has a company, right? We have Greg Jones, who's doing AI infrastructure. He's from NVIDIA, right? We have Sarah there, who's from AWS, right? So it's really a mixed group from across the state. They meet regularly, and anybody can join and be part of that conversation, right? So if you go to rai.utah.edu and look for the community consortium, you can join, you can start your own special interest group, you can join one of the groups, you can be part of the leadership. It's really open to everybody in the state. We've been also influencing national level activities. We responded to a White House request, right, about how to build an AI innovation action plan. And a lot of our contributions around public-private partnership, around responsible innovation, around sandboxes made it into this action plan that was released about a month back. We were part of driving a strategic partnership with NVIDIA that Governor Cox signed, right? And this said, okay, how do we strategically come together and build partnerships to support AI in the state? We recently announced last month another partnership to build an even larger investment in statewide infrastructure of 50 million over 5 years. And this is really making sure that we can support AI research, AI innovation, AI economic development, AI workforce development across the state, right? So how do we really build a statewide infrastructure to do this? This is a partnership between the state, the university, Huntsman Foundation, HP, and NVIDIA. Right. So the idea is that we truly have a innovation ecosystem here. I will conclude with this slide. This sort of tells you where the deadlines are and where the opportunities are to engage. Uh, and with that, I'll leave this up so that you can grab it if it's of interest, but I'll open it up for questions. Thank you for the attention.
Yes, I have another question, Dr. Parashar. There are a lot of industries and people that are worried about AI taking their job, and any other technology. People worry about that, but a lot of people are adapting and learning that, like, if I learn AI, then I'll be better at my job. But there's some industries like actors, on TV and movies, who are trying to litigate and contract so that their job is not taken over by AI. But how do you balance that, implementing the new technology and not curtailing it, moving it forward in the industry, at the same time not holding it back, but being aware of those jobs, those people, and from a policy standpoint, responsible AI? What are your thoughts around that?
Absolutely, right. That's sort of the most question I get the most, right? I think this is true. Like any technology, it has disruptions, and this is more disruptive than many, right? J- I wouldn't say job displacement. I'll talk about more about job transformation. We're going to see a lot of transformation in the nature of jobs, right? I think a lot. If some of you might remember when we were hitting the .com and internet boom, right? We were talking about how a lot of jobs are going to go away and get automated, right? And we saw a lot of changes, and in the end, we saw a lot more new jobs being created, right? And a lot of jobs, some went away, some got transformed, but a lot of new opportunities came on. And I see the same thing happening with AI. It's going to change the nature of jobs and the role that humans play in those jobs, right? And that'll require some amount of retraining and reskilling, right? But overall, I look at this as an opportunity to focus on where what humans do best, right? In creativity, in critical thinking, things that AI doesn't do very well, while automating things that can be tedious because AI does that really, really well. And I think as we move forward, I mean, it's hard to predict what exactly is going to happen, but I think one thing is becoming more and more obvious. I think people who familiarize themselves, build this tool into their repertoire will be more effective than those who don't, right? And someone said that you probably won't lose your job to AI, but you may lose your job to someone who has decided to learn AI, right? So
Yeah,
that.
and we've seen a lot of that. I think my question is more around the industries very specific to, like, acting, that
Mhm.
potentially could replace every single actor out there. And that group, that union, is trying to contract so that AI does not replace them. And so in those industries where the entire workforce could be replaced, even if they learn AI, it's gonna be a lot cheaper. You don't have to hire stunt doubles. You don't have to, there's so many different things it could replace.
Mhm,
From a
mhm.
responsible AI standpoint, are you guys
Uh,
looking at those industries? Well, a whole group of people, even if they learn AI, potentially could be replaced.
So that's definitely conversations we're having, and School of Fine Arts is a very big part of our conversation. They're part of our leadership team, so we want to have those, right? And I think there are different dimensions there. One is how do you protect your likeness, and that's a big part of the conversation there from actors' perspective, and how do they protect that? There is recently a movie made around with a purely AI-driven actor. Uh,
Yes, we saw that.
right. So I think acting, and this is now my own personal perspective here, right? I think acting is one of this wholly human thing, right? I mean, you go to see the talent and the see, right? So it's not something. I mean, it is. It's hard to see. Yes, it can be more efficient, may safer, when maybe a stunt double is animated or is AI driven that allows you to take some of the risk out of it that could harm a human, right? But a lot of the emotions have to come from a human in there, right? Again, this is my bias, but that's how I look at it. And I think I, as a lot of these things will evolve where we can leverage this technology to make things safer, to make things more effective, to do better at what we do, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of these aspects are human aspects, and they will be human.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your question.
Sure. This you're thinking about it, so that was the question.
I have a question for you, Doctor. So we've been studying a lot about like AI governance and all those frameworks that we have worldwide, like ISO 42001, AU AI Act, IEEE 7000. Are there like frameworks that the University of Utah are using or like better, or you guys are creating your own?
So it depends, right? All the frameworks you mentioned are looking at different aspects, right? So our goal is to leverage our understanding as much as possible, right? So far, we haven't seen the need, for example, new policies around AI. I think it's important to build awareness around how AI impacts existing policy. For example, there already is a policy around privacy protection, right? Now, what AI does, or around IP, what AI does is it makes it easier for a person to unknowingly violate that policy, and making people aware that when you're using a LLM or a chat bot, right, which uploads things to the cloud, you, even though you're just putting information, it becomes part of the model, and you're violating some of these policies the university has, right? Just making people aware of these nuances is important, and we're building ways to do that, right? And we're adopting existing frameworks that the university is already using for doing that, right? For around data privacy, around intellectual property. We're just leveraging existing frameworks and policies. And now, moving forward, there may be a need for new policy, right? But that hasn't happened so far.
Yes.
I have a question. You gave the one example of the gentleman that's researching the need to the soil moisture, so they have the need to irrigation, to use more water to irrigate land. And if it gets into residential properties, there's so many sprinkler systems. Are you working with any companies? Is he working with any companies that would be interested in that?
I don't know, but that's a good question for me to ask him. Yeah, so I know that he's working with a bunch of researchers out here, and they do have deployments. They work with local communities, um, and trying to figure out how to bring these technologies. I'm not sure whether they're partnering with a company, but I can ask.
Okay, I'm just curious, do most of your research projects have like a industry sponsor, or are they more academic based?
It's a mix, right?
Okay.
There are researchers that work purely with industry. The people,
Mhm.
a lot of researchers that have their own companies to do
Mhm.
technology transfer. There are a lot of that are purely academic or federally funded, right? So we have a mix across the
Yeah,
university.
that's great. It's such a wide range of research. It's very interesting.
It is. It's sort of becoming. It's a technology that really permeates all these areas and
Mhm.
can be impactful across all these areas.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm just want to bring this up because this talks about that there's a lot happening here, and there are some URLs and emails and other ways that you can get involved, find more information, and happy to engage or have you engage with the community, but also happy to answer any questions or now or later on send me email. I'll be happy to do that.
That's great. Thank you very much for speaking today.